People of Earth, we come in peace.
Welcome to this neighborhood, neighbor.
I am the Martian ambassador.
Des Moines and all of central Iowa, welcome to Mac's World Live. Mac's World is your world. Every day we talk about the issues and topics that matter most to you. And as always, it's your voice we want to hear in Mac's World. So join the conversation by calling 515-244-0077. And now, here's the host of Mac's World Live, J. Michael McCoy.
7 minutes after 3 o'clock Central Standard Time on the 27th day of January. We will date this show as it will probably be old news in 24 to 48 hours. I'm J. Michael McCoy with Mac's World Live on 99.3 The Truth. Bob Montserrat, the Cat in the Hat, watching the chat and the Service Legends Truth text line at 809-0993. If you want to join in the chat, go to webcast1live.com. Also, Frank the Verse Thomas in the house, and Ryan is producing. My special guest for this hour is Rafael Cruz, born in Cuba. What year were you born?
1939.
1939. And he is a gentleman who has a new book out called A Time for Action, Empowering the Faithful to Reclaim America. And my buddy Glenn Beck wrote the open and the forward, so love to see that. Here's a little fact you may not know. We are, of course, 5 days away from the Great Iowa Caucuses. We have thousands of people who have come into our city, staying in our hotels, our motels, our bed and breakfasts. There are over 1,200 foreign and national journalists on the ground here in town. In fact, we have a little special something going on Saturday that you'll be able to get on podcast. We will be in studio and we will be interviewed by Swiss Television. And Bob and I, are you coming in, Bob?
I hope to.
Yeah, Bob and I and Frank, and I don't know if Chris will be here, and I don't know if Ryan hasn't answered yet. Maybe he'll be here, but Swiss Television is going to come in here, and they want the view, the perception, the opinion of evangelical Iowans, as at that time we will be less than 72 hours away from knowing who wins and who loses the Iowa caucuses. So I'll put it on Facebook, but I think that'll be live from like 11:15 to 11:45, something like that, on Saturday morning. Here's a little fact I bet you didn't know. 54 million Christians didn't vote in 2012. 54 million Christians didn't vote in 2012. 12 million, 24% of those were not even registered. Society is in a state of moral decay, with 58 million babies aborted since 1973. Too many churches and organizations are avoiding issues like the sanctity of life and the traditional family, integrity, and personal responsibility. America, of course, founded by moral leaders on Judeo-Christian principles. In fact, you know that the first settlers were even seeking refuge from religious persecution abroad. But in the last 100 years, America has been on a slippery slope, moving away from its founding principles, in large part with little resistance from the church. A Time for Action, that is Rafael Cruz's book, is one man's quest for refuge from Cuban persecution to finding true freedom. You spent time when you were in Cuba as a baby, or not as a baby, as a young man. You spent time as a political activist. It landed you in jail. Regretfully campaigned for a man who offered hope and change. That candidate was Fidel Castro.
That's right. And he wasn't a candidate. He was a revolutionary trying to overthrow another dictatorship. And so all of us who were high school kids, we thought he was going to be our liberator.
Yeah.
Little did we know.
You were tortured and barely escaped a firing squad. Soon after that, you fled Cuba. Speaking no English, you were admitted to the University of Texas, found a job washing dishes, for 50 cents an hour. See, Frank, there are people who get paid less than you. Of course, that was 70 years ago. Found a job washing dishes for 50 cents an hour while learning the language. Rafael subsequently, see, I can't even say, built a successful career and today lives in the American dream. His son is a senator seeking to be the leader of the free world. What a country. Welcome.
Great to be with you, Mac.
Nice to have you. Is that chair comfortable?
It is very comfortable.
You got the
Thank you.
boss's chair there.
That's all right.
Nice high back chair. So where did this book come from? Was it inspired out of frustration, out of love, out of fear? What was it inspired by?
This book was inspired out of that statistic that you shared earlier about the millions upon millions of evangelical Christians that didn't vote in the 2012 election and the millions that weren't even registered to vote.
Why do you think so many evangelical Christians chose not to vote in 2012?
Well, it was not just in 2012. You know, for a long time, we go back to 1962. In 1962, prayer was removed from schools. I don't know if you remember when we prayed in school before school started.
Yeah.
And then a year later, the Bible was banned from all public schools. Now, you know, that one is a very interesting one because did you know that one of the very first Bibles in America was printed under the auspices of Congress to be the principal textbook in primary schools, high schools, and universities? And it was so for over a century. And in 1963, the Supreme Court banned the Bible from school. But here is the horrible thing, Mac. In spite of these two terrible decisions, the church remained silent. Their excuse is a political issue. How can you call prayer a political issue? How can you call Bible study a political issue? But that's exactly what the church did. The consequence of that silence, you can look at the statistics. Teen pregnancy skyrocketed after 1963. It has gone up over 535% since then, and so did violent crime. And then 10 years later, 1973, 9 unelected justices of the Supreme Court decided that a baby in the womb did not have that unalienable right to life from our Creator, as stated in the Declaration of Independence. And they legalized abortion. 58 million babies have been butchered through abortion in America. Again, the church remains silent. Same excuse, it's a political issue. Well, you know, how long is the church going to remain silent? And then we saw on June 26th of last year, the Supreme Court decided that God got it wrong and decided to redefine marriage. Now, I'll tell you what, that decision on June 26th is much more than a decision on same-sex marriage. It's really an attack on religious liberty, as we have seen people all across America being attacked because of upholding their religious belief. We saw, for example, Deacon Betty Odgaard here in Iowa who had a wedding chapel. There was a same-sex couple wanting to get married in their chapel.
Who was already married by the state of Iowa legally.
That's right. So it was not about marriage. No. It was all about shutting them down. And shutting them down, they did.
Yep.
You think about Melissa Klein in Oregon, a baker who one of her normal customers who had bought bakeries from, baked goods from them for years, all of a sudden said, we want you, I have a same-sex partner, we want to get married, we want you to cater our wedding and do a wedding cake for us. And Melissa and her husband said, we cannot do that. It violates our religious beliefs. Well, not only did they get sued, they just got slapped with a $135,000 fine. And those stories are all over America. It is religious persecution.
Rafael Cruz is my guest today. His book, A Time for Action, Empowering the Faithful to Reclaim America, is now on sale at bookstores. You can also go to Amazon. Epilogue by his son, Senator Ted Cruz, and forward by, of course, none other than Glenn Beck. Frank, question.
Well, and then not to mention our fascination with drugs and alcohol, our no-fault marriage laws in this country, and the thing that disturbs me the most is the out-of-wedlock birth rates in this country has skyrocketed. It is nearly 70%, 69-70% in the black community of out-of-wedlock birth rates, and it is up to, I think, mid-30s for whites.
Well, you know, what has happened is this. We have had a deterioration of the moral values that were the foundation of this country, and that started early in the last century. You know, of course, the start of progressivism was in the early 1900s with Theodore Roosevelt. And then in 1917, after the Bolshevik Revolution, some of those Marxist ideas began infiltrating in our universities. And 1933 is a very critical year because in 1933, the Humanist Manifesto was published in the United States. One of the principal signers of the Humanist Manifesto was John Dewey, considered the father of modern American education. John Dewey was a member of the American Communist Party. And basically, secular humanism says there is no God, you are your own God. And on that premise, there are no moral absolutes. Right. So there is a moral decay that goes along with it, and that leads to chaos.
Well, it goes back to your point. In 1960s, I was in church school, private church school, so I didn't I wasn't affected by prayer in school because obviously in church school we had prayer. But everything you said goes back to the decision to take prayer out of school.
That's right. That's right. And as I said, it all comes back from that secular humanistic worldview. And I have a whole chapter in my book talking about the effect of secular humanism upon our society, especially in the last 50 years.
All right, our guest is Rafael Cruz. His new book, A Time for Action, Empowering the Faithful to Recall America. It's your voice I want to hear. We'll open the phone lines, and you can talk to Rafael next, live here on The Truth.
Credit cards are like grandkids. They love you, sometimes get out of control, and it's fun to get a new one. Who can stop them from piling on?
Hi, I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of Des Moines. At the end of the day, you can return the grandkids, but you're stuck paying off bad credit card debt. We'll help you put the fun back into using credit cards responsibly. Right, kids?
Yeah! If you need help getting credit cards off your back, call Consumer Credit of Des Moines.
Hi, my name is David Burrier, your Hope Coach. I host a live weekly talk show called I've Been There every Thursday afternoon at 5:30, right here on webcast1live.com, and on my weekly radio program Saturday mornings at 10 on Truth Network 99.3 FM. I interview common everyday people who have survived incredible life challenges and who testify to God's faithfulness in the midst of their storms. So join me as we bring a message of hope and encouragement. Everybody needs hope. I know, because I've been there.
Rock and Prevention is celebrating 25 years of creating a caring community. We want to say thank you to the tens of thousands of Rock High School mentors that have carried our message of health, love, and encouragement to over 1.5 million children, teachers, and parents. Our mentors teach children methods and skills to prevent bullying and drug use. Thank you to all the school administrators, teachers, and counselors for their opportunity to serve you. Rock on, fair citizens. Rock on. This is Pat McManus for Rock and Prevention, the Richard O. Jacobson Foundation, and this station.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast 1.
Minutes after 3:21 in the afternoon, 27th day of January in the Lord's year 2016. I'm J. Michael McCoy. Coming in next hour, Pastor Luke Tim from Living Faith Lutheran Church, and we're going to talk about the book of Revelation. The truth, the only truth, and nothing but the truth. He's got his view upon it, his interpretation of it, and I think you'll find it interesting, if not right on the mark. But that's what we're going to do in the 4 o'clock hour here on 99.3 The Truth. My guest today is Rafael Cruz. He has a 5-point plan for Christians, churches, and pastors, as well as 5 points of danger in America if we do not change the course of our actions. Get involved and participate in the process. You can make a difference. The book that is now out is called A Time for Action, Empowering the Faithful to Reclaim America. The epilogue is written by an unknown senator from Texas, Ted Cruz, and a hot dog radio guy named Glenn Beck. Love both those guys. So let me ask you a question. Right now, you've got some candidacies that are, I don't know, kind of unwinding. So you've got undecided voters out there still in Iowa. Some say up to 30%. I know who your candidate is. Your son Rafael, or your son Ted Theodore. Why should I caucus for him?
Well, I'll tell you, Mac, as we see this array of candidates, and there, we have a very deep bench in the Republican primary, which is very, very much in contrast with the Democratic primary.
Oh, yeah.
Which they are trying to fight to see who is furthest to the left. And but one of the challenges that we have when we are dealing with politicians is they all tell you what you want to hear.
Right.
As a matter of fact, all of us have been burned by politicians that will tell you something on the campaign trail. They tell you all these wonderful promises of things they're going to do, only to get elected and do exactly the opposite. So how do we prevent ourselves from being burned again? Well, I tell people a very simple rule. Stop listening to their rhetoric and start looking at their record. Stop listening to what they say. Start looking at what they do and what they have done. Jesus put it this way: ye shall know them by their fruits. It's about time, Mac, we do some fruit checking. You ask, what is different about Ted Cruz? Well, Ted Cruz has the stripes from leading the fight, whether it is the fight for the sanctity of life. He has been fighting that fight on life for decades. He's been a champion on life for decades, taking it repeatedly to the Supreme Court. He tried 9 cases to the Supreme Court of the United States, the majority of those dealing with religious freedom or life. And if you want to look at the fight for traditional family, he's been leading the fight. The fight to not only defund, but prosecute Planned Parenthood. He's been at the forefront of that fight. The fight to keep the right to keep and bear arms, our Second Amendment rights, he has been at the forefront. He was instrumental in the Heller victory. And he's been a strong voice against this horrible Iran nuclear deal. He's been a strong advocate against amnesty and to protect our security and secure the border, which is a matter of national security. He has been in the trenches leading the fight. And what he says, all these candidates tell you all that they are for. And the question that needs to be asked, when the battle was being fought, where were you? I'll tell you something. When you look at Ted Cruz, there are two things that you can be sure of. Number one, he will tell you the truth. And number two, he will do exactly what he says he's going to do. He has only done that 100% of the time. I think this election is going to boil down to one word, and that word is trust. Who can you trust to do what he says he's going to do? Well, look at someone who has already done it, and he has proven that he can be trusted.
Rafael Cruz is my guest. His new book, A Time for Action, Empowering the Faithful to Reclaim America. You can get it on Amazon or most bookstores. I just want to throw 2 cents out for something. My mother is a constitutional expert. In fact, she teaches constitutional law at the University of Alaska. And she is a left-wing liberal, but I love her. And I called her with this question that was going around about is Ted Cruz constitutionally eligible to be president? And she said, without a doubt. That is a smokescreen. It's a red herring. It's a squirrel. And we should stop listening to the rhetoric and understand that that's not the topic at hand.
Absolutely.
And you didn't tell me to say that. That is my 2 cents worth there, because we've got to start getting to the meat of the matter. Yeah. This is Wednesday. We have Wednesday to Thursday, Thursday to Friday, Friday to Saturday, Saturday to Sunday. We have 5 days to figure out who you're going to caucus for. And I don't know about you. I have to be honest with you. I haven't made my final decision yet. I was leaning a different way, and that candidate, Donald Trump, I can't stomach him anymore. And I apologize to you, the listener, if I led you down a path that I thought you should look at him, because I did think we needed to look at him up front. But he's making me feel stupid. He's making me feel like I got stupid written on my forehead. He's telling me things that I know aren't true. And that's a man that I can't have in the presidency. So I'm back on the board. I'm back trying to figure out who I'm going to caucus for. And I was very pleased to have you come in today so we could talk about some of these issues, so I could talk directly to somebody who obviously one of the candidates pretty well.
Well, Mark,
you can help me.
Mark, let me just, as you were sharing about your mother being a constitutional scholar, let me tell you a little story about Ted. When Ted had just turned 9 years old, that was the end of 1979. I was very involved in the Reagan campaign. I was on the state board of an organization called the Religious Roundtable. And we mobilized millions of Christians across America to help elect whom I consider the greatest president we've had since Abraham Lincoln, President Ronald Reagan. So all our conversation around the dinner table every day was about why we had to get rid of this socialist, progressive Jimmy Carter and replace him with a constitutional conservative like Ronald Reagan. So my son Ted got a dose of conservative politics from a Christian worldview every day for a year when he was 9 years old. And then when he just turned 13, something happened that changed the course of his life. We introduced him to an organization called the Free Enterprise Institute. Now, he was reading Adam Smith and von Mises and Hayek and Bastiat and John Locke and Milton Friedman and the Federalist Papers and the Anti-Federalist Papers. Then this organization created a group of 5 kids. They called them the Constitutional Corroborators. They hired a memory expert and taught these 5 kids to memorize the U.S. Constitution. Ted was one of those 5. During the next 4 years, my son Ted gave approximately 80 speeches on free market economics and the Constitution. Before my son Ted left high school, He was passionate about the Constitution. He was passionate about the Declaration, about free markets, about limited government, about the rule of law. And that passion became like fire in his bones. And I'll tell you, Mac, the reason I know my son Ted Cruz will not compromise his principles in Washington is that fire is as alive today as it was over 30 years ago.
Rafael Cruz is my guest right now. His book, A Time for Action, Empowering the Faithful to Reclaim America, is on the market. Go to your local bookstore or go to Amazon.com and order yours today.
I don't know the nuanced differences, but I think Cubans and Mexicans are both considered Latin America.
Well, yes, although Cuba is a little bit different because when the Spaniards came to Cuba, they killed all the natives.
Okay, well, that leads to my question. What is it in particular in the water, and that's a jest, what is it about the Cuban regime that causes the defectors that come from Cuba to here to generally lean more conservative and more Republican, as opposed to, I think, the Mexican part seems to lean a little bit more liberal? I mean, they have conservative values about marriage and et cetera, but they go more for the fiscal side. You know, they vote more in line with Democrats on the fiscal issues.
Well,
what is it about Cubans in particular, and the ones that are in Florida, what makes them so vehemently turn conservative and Republican?
I think the answer is very simple, Frank. You know, I used to tell my son over and over again, you know, Ted, when I lost my freedom in Cuba, I had a place to come to. If we lose our freedoms here, where are we going to go? And, you know, Frank, there is no place to go. I think the difference is we have seen the other side. We have seen what the effects of communism are. And I'll tell you what, socialism has never worked, and too many people are drinking the Kool-Aid. We are at a point in America that has never occurred before, where over 65% of the population of America today believes that their children will inherit a lesser America than they inherited.
Now, when you was a young man in Cuba, did you look at the United States and see this religious freedom and fiscal freedom that you could have if you made it to this country? Weren't we like the shining beacon in the world, shining out our freedom for religion and our freedom to come and be able to make money, to become something? If you had talent to become something, wasn't that very appealing?
Oh, yes. Well, religious freedom was not, because I was not a religious person when I was in Cuba. I didn't come to Christ until I was 36 years old in 1975, after many years in this country. But the American dream was something that we had heard a lot about. We had heard all the Horatio Alger stories.
Right.
And those stories are a dime a dozen in America. America is the only country in the world where with hard work and perseverance, all your dreams can become a reality.
Do you think American citizens appreciate that?
Well, I think too many people don't realize the value of freedom because they never experience the loss of freedom. As a matter of fact, when I tell them my story, I have many people that say, oh, we could never lose our freedoms here. But the reality is we are losing our freedoms here. The difference is that we are losing them a little at a time. And it's like the frog in a pot of water.
Right.
It's the old story. You know, if it's a little at a time, people keep taking it and they don't realize. But I'll tell you what, America is waking up. The church is waking up. And I'll tell you what, more and more people in the body of Christ are realizing that we cannot remain passive. We have to become involved in reclaiming America.
Rafael Cruz is my guest. His new book, A Time for Action, Empowering the Faithful to Reclaim America, on the market now. Get it at Amazon.com. Your questions are next, 244-0077, or give it to the Service Legends text line at 809-0993.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
I'm Brian Leach, owner of Service Legends, and my position is Chief Talent Officer.
I'm Nicholas Wonderscheid.
I am Bernie Hobbs.
And I'm the Service Manager.
Marketing Director and Client Relations Manager.
Everything that we do is about ensuring that we exceed your expectations.
Our clients are important to us. 100% satisfaction.
We're not just focused on heating and cooling. That's the easiest part of our job, actually, is fixing furnaces and air conditioners.
Everyone that we come in touch with, we want to improve lives.
Bottom line is, we've got our installation guarantees, 25% energy savings guarantee, comfort guarantee, temperature selection guarantee, property protection guarantee.
100% satisfaction guaranteed, fixed rate or it's free.
All of those guarantees are backed up with a 100% money-back guarantee to hold ourselves accountable to making sure that you get what you're after.
Just fixing the problem today. If they have another problem 5 days down the road, it's still fixed rate or it's free.
We use what's called straightforward pricing. Our technicians are going to give you an exact to-the-penny price on what it's going to take before they move forward with any repair. That way you know what to expect.
It's the same price every day.
No surprises.
If you get off work at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, you come home, you realize that, oh, my furnace is broken. Now you need to call somebody out that night. You shouldn't have to pay more for that.
We're guaranteeing service 24/7.
We run afternoons, evenings, nights, weekends. We're staffed to work that.
Phone rings at 3 in the morning. You'll get one of our representatives answering the phone every time.
We're not sending you out to Timbuktu in some call center. It's our Service Legend team members, our mission control team.
I'll take a call anytime.
And then they answer the phones the same way during the day as they do at night.
It's a great day at your service company. How can we make you smile?
That's the only way to provide true 24-hour service.
When you're able to let somebody actually live in their home safely when they weren't able to do that before, where they don't have to stay up at night and worry about, is the heat going to come back on? Are we going to freeze the pipes? Is the baby in the room next door going to be sick because they got too cold? When you're able to help somebody overcome challenges like that, that's impacting a life. That makes a difference. I get goosebumps thinking about it.
I love the team. I love the people that I work with.
We have fun, but we work hard.
I call them my ambassadors of legendary service. If you could just envision what that is, that's who we're sending to your home.
They literally will call in, pick up the phone and call and say, hey, I want to talk to your manager. And I get on the phone, they're like, that technician that was at my house was the greatest technician ever. That's cool to me.
We want to brighten people's days.
Every person that we have going into the house has gone through an extensive background check.
Drug testing, we have a very thorough interview process that 1 out of 140 people make it through.
If we promise you something, that's what you're going to get, no matter what.
We're here when you need us to protect the safety and comfort of your family.
If you're not happy, we're going to make it right.
If we're willing to put 100% money-back guarantee on what we do, what type of work do you think we do?
Give us a call. We're there for you 24/7, 365 days a year.
Enough said.
"22 minutes before the top of the hour, 3:38, top of the hour. It's us, Max World Live, here on The Truth, 99.3. The Book of Revelation. Every generation since it was written has said we're in the last days right now. Right, look at what's going on right now. It's got to be today. It's got to be tomorrow. It's got to be now. A lot of people try to make the Book of Revelation very confusing. Well, I have a local pastor, Luke Tim from Living Faith Lutheran Church, who says it's not difficult at all. Luke will be in-house, in studio, next hour, helping us understand that he says is a simply understood book. Luke Tim, next hour, live on The Truth. 244-0077, that's the number if you've got a question for Rafael Cruz. We also have a Service Legends Truth text line at 809-0993, and you can always Facebook us or ask a question there. Jill wanted to know where your son was going to be on caucus night, and you think it's going to be out at the state fairgrounds.
Yes, I think he's renting a barn at the fairgrounds. I don't know exactly where, but I'm sure it'll be easy to find.
Yeah, and so if you want to join Ted Cruz out there that evening and go through the caucus watch night, you can do that. I think we'll know. Well, I don't know that. It depends on the turnout. I hope it's an unbelievable turnout. They're talking about maybe one of the largest ever, but that'll depend on Mother Nature. But we should know by the 10 o'clock news. Now, you recall 4 years ago, we had the situation where Mitt Romney was given the Iowa caucuses, and then a few days later, Rick Santorum was actually named the winner of the Iowa caucuses because of a mistake in Wapello County. They believe they've corrected those mistakes for now, and hopefully for good. And so by Monday night, somewhere around the 10 o'clock news, we should be able to know who our caucus winners are and who didn't win. Frank, you have a question for Rafael Cruz?
What was your immediate reaction when Obama normalized relations with Cuba?
Well, I thought, Frank, that was a horrible decision. It was a horrible decision on several counts. Number one, you got to realize that communism doesn't work. Before Castro, Cuba had a flourishing economy, probably the best economy in all of Latin America, 1-to-1 exchange with the U.S. dollar. And, of course, when communism took over, under communism, nobody works because no matter how much effort you put in, you get paid the same, so nobody works. So the economy goes to the dumps. And so for many years, the USSR pumped millions and millions of dollars into Cuba. And then when the USSR collapsed, Venezuela picked up the tab. Well, now with oil at $30 a barrel, Venezuela is in dire straits. As a matter of fact, there is a great deal of famine in Venezuela today. People are really starving in Venezuela. So Venezuela can't support Cuba anymore. So when the regime was possibly, in trouble, shaking, here comes Obama to offer them a lifeline and the opportunity to pump millions or billions of dollars into Cuba. But number two is this. Cuba has been involved in international terrorism, in exporting communism throughout the world, not just years ago, like in the 1970s, when they had communist guerrillas in Angola, and for 30 years, communist guerrillas in Colombia helping the FARC. But even just a year ago, there was a merchant ship from North Korea coming out of Havana. It got stopped in Panama. It had sacks of sugar on top and weapons in the bottom, manufacturing Cuba going to North Korea. Cuba is still in the business of exporting terrorism throughout the world. And then you think about this. Obama is trying as fast as possible to empty Guantanamo Bay and sending terrorists back to fighting with ISIS and possibly kill Americans. That is horrible. But not only that, I am almost certain that once he empties Guantanamo Bay, he's going to try to give that base back to Cuba. Think about if Cuba put that base up for bids.
I have one quick question for you, and you don't have to answer this if you don't want to, but is Obama anti-American?
Well, let me say this. Obama has had policies that have destroyed America. This has been the most destructive president we have ever had in the history of this country. As a matter of fact, I think Jimmy Carter is very happy today because Obama stole his title as the worst president ever.
Yep.
And also Obama is the most anti-Israel administration we have ever had.
I agree with that.
Rafael Cruz is my guest today. His new book, A Time for Action, Empowering the Faithful to Reclaim America, is on the shelves right now. Go to your local bookstore, or for sure go to Amazon.com and get it. It's a time for action. Rafael Cruz presents a 5-point game plan for Christians, churches, and pastors, as well as the 5 points of danger if America does not change its course. We as Christians need to get involved and participate in the process. You can make a difference, to preserve our freedoms. Today, evangelical Christians must vote, volunteer, and campaign. It is imperative that courageous conservatives lock arms to reignite the promise of America. And you believe that starts in the pulpit.
Absolutely. Mark, unfortunately, because of political correctness, our history books have been rewritten. When you realize, we look at the Declaration of Independence, and you see all this series of grievances against King George. But most people don't know that each and every one of those grievances were preached from the pulpits of America for 10 years prior to the writing of the Declaration of Independence. It was preachers from the pulpit that were calling out King George for the atrocities that were being perpetrated upon the American people. Preachers were at the forefront of the American Revolution. When Paul Revere was going on his famous ride, he was going to the home of a pastor, Pastor Jonas Clark. I speak in great detail in my book, A Time for Action, about this. I even have the sermon that Jonas Clark preached and his
in the book.
Okay. And his recount of the Battle of Lexington. The Battle of Lexington was fought right outside the church of Pastor Jonas Clark. As a matter of fact, 8 colonists died in that fight. 7 of them were members of Pastor Jonas Clark's church.
244-0077, that's the number. Ron is on the line. Ron, you've got a question for Rafael Cruz. You're live on the air in Mac's World.
Hi, Mac. Pastor Cruz, I just heard an advertisement, a PAC against Ted on this station probably half an hour ago, and I wonder if you would address it. It said, one, that he borrowed money from Wall Street to get his campaign started. I think there was something mentioned about his wife working on Wall Street. And then they said supposed to be such a good Christian, but his tax returns indicate he gives less than 1%. And so I think they said something about he doesn't tithe. I thought maybe it would be good if you addressed that.
Well, first of all,
thanks, Ron.
Let's talk about the first part of the equation. He didn't borrow money from Wall Street. Let me tell you, when he was running for Senate, he was running against a man that was extremely wealthy. He spent $35 million in attack ads. $22 million of that came from his own pocket. And so Ted, in order to be able to compete to a certain extent, he put all his savings into the campaign. Now, part of his savings were in the form of stocks, investments. And so what he did is he used those stocks as collateral to borrow some money from a bank. No different than you're going to a bank and getting a mortgage on your home. That is, it is ludicrous to say because of that he's owned by the banks or owned by Wall Street. He borrowed some money just like you would borrow to get a mortgage. And by the way, those loans have been repaid.
Rafael Cruz is our guest. There were some other questions from the listener, Ron. I want to give you an opportunity to answer those in just a second. We're going to take our last break. We'll come back with about 8 minutes, Mr. Cruz, and you can say whatever you need to say. The book is A Time for Action, Empowering the Faithful to Reclaim America, now available at Amazon.com. Rafael Cruz, this hour, live here on The Truth. Yep, I told you, it's The Truth. 99.3.
Credit cards are like grandkids. They love you, sometimes get out of control, and it's fun to get a new one. Who can stop them from piling on?
Hi, I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of Des Moines. At the end of the day, you can return the grandkids, but you're stuck paying off bad credit card debt. We'll help you put the fun back into using credit cards responsibly. Right, kids?
Yeah! If you need help getting credit cards off your back, call Consumer Credit of Des Moines.
Hi, my name is David Burrier, your Hope Coach. I host a live weekly talk show called I've Been There every Thursday afternoon at 5:30, right here on Webcast1Live.com, and on my weekly radio program Saturday mornings at 10 on Truth Network 99.3 FM. I interview common everyday people who have survived incredible life challenges and who testify to God's faithfulness in the midst of their storms. So join me as we bring a message of hope and encouragement. Everybody needs hope. I know, because I've been there.
Rockton Prevention is celebrating 25 years of creating a caring community. We want to say thank you to the tens of thousands of Rock High School mentors that have carried our message of health, love, and encouragement to over 1.5 million children, teachers, and parents. Our mentors teach children methods and skills to prevent bullying and drug use. Thank you to all the school administrators, teachers, and counselors for the opportunity to serve you. Rock on, fair citizens. Rock on. This is Pat McManus for Rock and Prevention, the Richard O. Jacobson Foundation, and this station.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
10 minutes before the top of the hour, Salem Radio Network News. And then Pastor Luke Tim from Living Faith Lutheran Church. We are going to talk about the book of Revelation. He says he can explain it simply and not with all the hubbub that sometimes comes with the book of Revelation. And so Luke Tim will be in. Actually, that's him right now standing in front of my camera. But he'll be in and live with us here after the 4 o'clock hour. Rafael Cruz has been our guest here for the last hour, and we sure appreciate you being here. Now, that caller, Ron, that we had a minute ago, not only asked about the loan that he took out against his equity, he also asked about the contributions that, according to this PAC ad, your son hardly gave any money to any churches or charities or anything.
Tithing.
Well, let me just say this. It is unfortunate that people will try to impugn the character or the Christian walk of someone else. But I'll say this. Yeah, the Christian walk is a growing walk. You notice that they use figures from 10 years ago. And Ted is the first to admit that his faith is a growing faith. He's being improving in all areas, including that. But, none of us have arrived. There was only one perfect man. His name was Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
And we are all in a growing faith. He is a man that seeks to honor God in everything he does and understands that everything we do is for his glory. And so it is a walk of faith, and it's a growing walk of faith.
And what a wonderful answer. What a wonderful, transparent, honest answer. Thank you. I appreciate that.
But some of these people, maybe from the left, it could be the right, but that are making this allegation, brought up some facts that Mitt Romney gave more to his church, tithing, whatever, etc., than Biden, Kerry, Clinton, Obama combined. So there's certainly some stingy people in politics. So, how about these people that's making the accusations actually come forward and make it instead of, putting it in a PAC ad?
Well, I think actually that trying to attack the character of an individual or the Christian faith or the Christian walk as an individual is something that only that individual can know what is in his heart. And
exactly.
I think that with the challenges that we have in America today, we don't need to be distracted. We need to be talking about the issues that are important to America. We are trying to elect the next leader of the free world, the commander-in-chief of the United States of America. And we better elect someone who is capable to step into that role and take a position in leadership in a time where America is in crisis. And we better make a right decision. We have made the wrong decisions on too many occasions in the past, and we've lived to regret it. That's why I said a little while ago, Frank, stop listening to the rhetoric and let's look at the record. Let's stop looking at what politicians say, because they will say what you want to hear. Let's start looking at what they do and what they have done. If someone have walked consistently all their lives as pro-abortionists, and all of a sudden they tell you they are staunchly pro-life, at the very least you ought to have a question mark on that, because ye shall know them by their fruits. That's what Jesus said.
Yeah, we need to be fruit inspectors. We need to get in there and look at what people say. I think a lot of Americans, especially Iowans, have been faced with that truth here in the last week, as we've taken a much closer look at the guy that's been leading the polls and spending money lavishly all around our state. And now some of those fruits have been uncovered. And upon inspection through the eyes of Jesus, they're not really fruits. They're con men, and their games being played in politics, and not truth being told. Like Rafael said, just something being said. Now, I'm not asking you or advising you to vote for anyone. As I've told you before, I don't endorse candidates. I'm just a guy on the radio in the afternoon in Des Moines, Iowa. My opinion should not matter to you at all. In fact, if my opinion on who I'm going to vote for can sway your opinion, Maybe you shouldn't be voting, and probably neither should I be on the radio. I'll tell you on Tuesday who I voted for. I promise I will. But we have people like Rafael Cruz on and other people. We've had people representing Marco Rubio. We've had people representing Donald Trump, Jeb Bush,
Bobby Jindal,
Mike Huckabee. They've all been here, and they've all told you what you think. It is time for you to get on your knees and pray to God and say, God, who's your will? Who is it your will to become a leader of the United States, the greatest country in the whole world? We need to gain that greatness back. God, what is your will? Don't tell God you want Ted Cruz or anybody else as president. God doesn't work that way. I'm pretty sure. We need to pray for God's will to be done, and then his will be done.
But I'll tell you something, Mac, with regards to that. I am so happy and so encouraged that there's so much effort and so much emphasis on 2 Chronicles 7:14. If my people who are called by my name, that's the people of God.
Yeah.
That's not the heathen, shall humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways. Then God says, I will hear from heaven, I will forgive their sin, and I will heal their land. Yes, we must start in prayer, but prayer is only half the equation. We go in prayer to God to seek his face, to commune with him, to get a vision and a revelation from him, to be empowered by him to do the work that he commands us to do. The second part of the equation is 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 20, which says that we are ambassadors for Christ. That means we are God's representatives here on earth. We are God's hands, we are God's feet, we are God's mouthpiece. And Jesus said, shout it from the housetops. We can pray God's will be done, but if you do not go to caucus, and if you do not caucus for a man of integrity that will stand on truth and on the truth of the Word of God, then you are becoming part of the problem. We need to put feet to our prayers and be part of the solution.
Rafael Cruz, it's an honor to have you on once again. And maybe after all this is over and your son's in the White House, you can come back and we can just talk football, or we can talk cooking, or, something fun like that rather than all this politics. But I love your passion. I love you. You are a tireless man. I hope I'm like you when I'm your age and I'm a dad, and maybe one of my sons or daughters or grandchildren is out there trying to do some of the great things that your son is doing. So thank you for your inspiration.
It's all for God's glory. To him be all the glory, honor, because it is all his.
The book is A Time for Action. Empower the Faithful by Reclaiming America. Rafael Cruz. It's on bookstands now. Buy it before Monday. You never know. Like the Bible, reading a book could make a vast difference, not only in your life, but in the future of others. I'm J. Michael McCoy for Frank the Verse Thomas. Bob Montserrat and Ryan is producing. We're going to take a break. The big news station coming up, Salem Radio Network News, and then we'll be back with Pastor Luke Tim from Living Faith Lutheran Church on a simple way to look at the book of Revelation. That's coming up next, right here on The Truth. Yeah, I told you, The Truth, with Luke's face right in my camera there. 99.3, The Truth. Thanks for listening.